The orbital academy floated in the serene void between Mars and Jupiter, a gleaming testament to the Galactic Council's commitment to interspecies education. Daniel pressed his four-fingered hand against the observation window, his cyan skin reflecting the distant stars. As a Valorian, he'd grown up in 0.6 standard gravity on a world where the most dangerous predator was a herbivore the size of his torso. The academy was supposed to be safe, a place where the galaxy's youth learned diplomacy, science, and cooperation. Then the humans arrived. Daniel had heard the rumors, of course. Everyone had. Earth, redesignated as Deathworld 7 in the Council's xenobiological classification system, had only joined the galactic community 3 cycles ago. The planet was a statistical impossibility. 1 standard gravity, an oxygen-rich atmosphere that caused spontaneous combustion in organic compounds, tectonic plates that shifted with alarming regularity, weather systems capable of generating wind speeds that exceeded most species' terminal velocities, and an entire ecosystem locked in an arms race of predation that had lasted hundreds of millions of years. The humans called it home. Orla was the first human student at Kepler Station Academy. Daniel watched her enter the common area on her first day, moving with an economy of motion that seemed almost predatory. She was shorter than most species present. Humans averaged only 1.7 meters, but something about her posture suggested coiled potential. Her skin was a deep brown, her hair bound in intricate patterns against her skull, and her forward-facing eyes scanned the room with an intensity that made Daniel's dorsal ridge flatten instinctively. "That's the human," Vex whispered beside him. The Kaltorian's tentacles rippled with poorly concealed disdain. "From the Deathworld. I heard their planet has predators that hunt in packs using coordinated strategy. Can you imagine? Their own world is trying to kill them constantly." Daniel said nothing, but he'd read the reports. Earth's wildlife included ambush predators with bite forces that could crush titanium, airborne hunters with vision that could track movement from 2 kilometers away, and microscopic organisms that could shut down immune systems in hours. Humans had evolved not as the apex predator, but as persistence hunters, creatures that could track prey for days, that refused to stop, that turned endurance into a weapon. The Academy's social hierarchy was well established. Valorians like Daniel occupied the middle tiers, respected for their mathematical abilities but not particularly influential. The Kaltorians, with their vast commercial networks, dominated. And now there was Orla alone, categorized as potentially hazardous by station protocols. Vex decided to test the human. It started small. Orla's nutrition supplements, carefully formulated for her biochemistry, went missing. Her data tablets were corrupted. Anonymous messages flooded her communication channel, reminding her that Deathworlders weren't welcome, that she should return to her nightmare planet. Orla endured it in silence. Daniel watched from a distance, troubled. He'd been taught that the Council promoted harmony, that diversity strengthened the galaxy. But he'd also seen how fear manifested as cruelty, how the unknown became the target. The situation escalated 3 weeks into the term. Daniel was studying in the low-gravity recreation sphere when he heard the commotion. He propelled himself toward the sound, his movement graceful in the 0.3 G environment. A crowd had gathered near the equipment lockers. Vex floated in the center, his tentacles spread in dominance display, surrounded by a half-dozen Kaltorian students. And there was Orla, pressed against the wall, her expression carefully neutral. "The Deathworlder thinks she can use our facilities," Vex announced, his translator rendering his biochemical communications into standard galactic. "Should we remind her what happens to predators who forget their place?" Daniel's pulse quickened. This was wrong. He should intervene. But Kaltorians were influential, and he was just a mid-tier Valorian with 3 more years before graduation. He hesitated. Vex moved closer to Orla, one tentacle extending toward her face in a gesture that was clearly threatening. "Your species doesn't belong here. You're contaminating our—" Orla moved. It wasn't like any movement Daniel had seen before. One moment she was motionless. The next, she'd twisted her body, impossibly fast in the low gravity, caught Vex's tentacle and redirected his momentum. The Kaltorian spun, off balance, his other tentacles flailing. Orla released him with perfect timing, sending him drifting into his companions. The entire sequence took less than 2 seconds. Silence flooded the sphere. Orla's voice was quiet, controlled. "I don't want trouble. I'm here to learn, same as everyone else. But where I come from, we don't prey on the weak and we don't tolerate bullies." She looked at each of the Kaltorians in turn, her forward-facing eyes, Predator's eyes, locking with theirs. "On Earth, we have a saying, don't start none won't be none." Vex's skin color shifted through several shades of distress. You attacked me, that's assault. The Council will." "The station records everything," Orla interrupted, gesturing to the omnipresent monitoring sensors. "Self-defense isn't assault. You initiated physical contact. I simply redirected." She pushed off gently, gliding toward the exit, her movement now seeming effortless and natural. As she passed Daniel, she met his eyes for just a moment. He saw something there, not anger but a deep weariness, a loneliness that transcended species. The incident was reviewed. Station security confirmed Orla's account. Vex received a formal reprimand, but the social dynamics had shifted fundamentally. The other students began avoiding Orla entirely, not with hostility now, but with fear. Daniel heard the whispers in the dining commons, watched as beings gave her a wide berth in the corridors. The human had revealed what everyone suspected, that Deathworlders possessed capabilities that made other species profoundly uncomfortable. Daniel found himself thinking about her constantly, not from fear, but from curiosity tinged with shame. He'd stood by and watched. He'd let cruelty happen because intervention carried social cost. 2 days after the incident, he made a decision. He found Orla in the observation deck during off hours, staring at the distant point of light that was her sun. She didn't turn when he approached, but her shoulders tensed slightly, an awareness of his presence that confirmed everything he'd heard about human sensory acuity. "I'm sorry," Daniel said in standard galactic. Now she turned, her expression guarded. "For what?" "For not helping. When Vex cornered you, I saw it happening and I did nothing." Orla studied him for a long moment, her alien features unreadable. Then something in her expression softened. "You're here now." They stood together in silence, watching the stars. "What's it like?" Daniel finally asked. "Earth, I mean, everyone calls it a death world, but is it really that terrible?" A small smile played at the corners of Orla's mouth. "It's beautiful. Dangerous, yes. We have storms that can level cities, earthquakes that reshape continents, predators that have evolved specifically to hunt us. But we have sunsets that paint the sky in colors you can't imagine. We have oceans that cover 70% of our planet, teeming with life. We have mountains that pierce the clouds and forests older than most spacefaring civilizations." She turned to face him fully. "We evolved in adversity, Daniel. Every challenge our world threw at us, we adapted. We learned to work together because alone we'd die. We learned to persist because giving up meant extinction. Earth didn't make us cruel, it made us resilient." "I think," Daniel paused, searching for words, "I think we're taught that different means dangerous, that strength equals threat." "Sometimes strength means protecting others," Orla said quietly. "On Earth, humans are the apex species not because we're the strongest or fastest or most venomous. We succeeded because we cooperate, because we build communities, because we refuse to abandon our own." Over the following weeks, Daniel made a point of sitting with Orla in classes, partnering with her on projects, publicly demonstrating that humans weren't to be feared but understood. It wasn't easy. He faced social consequences, lost friendships, endured his own share of ostracism. But slowly, others followed his example. A Valorian engineer named Kess began eating lunch with them. A Talaxian artist asked Orla about Earth's music. The walls of fear began to crack. In their final group project of the term, a simulation of first contact protocols, Orla's team faced a crisis scenario. A ship in distress, limited resources, difficult choices. While other teams debated optimal resource allocation and risk assessment, Orla proposed something radical. "We save them all," she said simply. "We push our limits, we innovate, we refuse to accept that anyone has to die." It was a very human solution. Her team won the simulation with the highest survival rate in Academy history. As the term ended and students prepared to return to their homeworlds, Daniel found Orla again at the observation deck. "Thank you," she said, "for taking that first step, for seeing past the fear." Daniel's dorsal ridge flushed with emotion. "I learned something important. That true strength isn't about power, it's about choosing kindness when you could choose dominance. You could have hurt Vex badly that day, but you didn't. That's what makes humans remarkable." Orla smiled, genuine warmth in her expression. "We have another saying on Earth. The measure of civilization is how it treats its weakest members. I think that applies to the galaxy too." She extended her hand. A human gesture Daniel had learned meant friendship, trust, and connection. He reached out his own four-fingered hand and clasped hers. Two beings from different worlds, different evolutionary paths, different experiences of what home meant. But in that moment, under the light of 1 billion distant stars, they were simply students who'd learned that the greatest threat to civilization wasn't predators from Deathworlds. It was the failure to recognize our shared humanity, in whatever form it took.